Hey guys, DJ here, and welcome to the first of a few guide-style videos from me on Escape from Tarkov. What I want to go over today is based on my experience with the game and having spent nearly a year playing, speaking with other experienced players within the community. As always, most of the things that I tell you will be subjective. And definitely personal preference. So you will find as you play through the game yourself that you'll develop your own preferences. You may get advice from other people. There is no right way to do things in Tarkov. There's just your own interpretation of it. And this is basically mine. So hopefully it helps. If you have any suggestions or things that you think would be done better, then please feel free to leave those in the comments below. So unless this is your first time playing Tarkov, you'll be familiar with the options that you're presented with when you first launch the game, whether that be on a new account or immediately after a wipe. I wanted to go over some of those with you today, just in case there's something you may have previously overlooked, or if there's something that doesn't make sense to you. And also just to give you an idea of how I have my game set up, so that you can see how I play on any given day. So after you've gone through the terms and conditions screen and accepted those, you pick your name. Pretty straightforward. Not really much I can tell you about that. Enter your name, hit the next button, and then you come to the screen where you select the faction that you want to be a part of. Bear in mind, once you've selected whether it's Bear or USEC, you cannot change this without resetting your account again. It's not really that big of a choice, because the only difference between the two factions is that the USEC speaks its voice lines in English, and the Bear speaks its voice lines in Russian. So again, totally up to you. It's purely personal preference. I always go with USEC because I really enjoy using the voice lines and understanding what the hell my dude is saying. So I pick USEC and click next. The next question you're going to be asked is whether or not you want to go through the tutorial, which is very short and highlights most of the basic functions within the game that you'll need to know. If this is your first time playing the game, I highly recommend clicking yes. If you've played the game before and you understand the basic layout of the menu system and how to put ammo in magazines, things like that, then just click no and go straight through. For the purposes of this video, I'm just going to click yes and give you a brief tour of that tutorial. It basically just goes through your stats, the tabs up here on the top left, and as you click through, it will show you the different tabs, explain all of the different health pieces of information, same with gear, and the same with the tactical rig, and also the quick use bar at the bottom. So you can go through this. It will give you the information you need. It talks about your stash, and it takes probably less than 5 minutes to go through it properly. So we can just click through this. It wants us to load a magazine. We'll do that. It wants us to install the magazine. We'll do that. And then we get brought to the menu screen. So the main menu screen is what you'll see every time you start the game from now on. And that's pretty self-explanatory. But before we go into any of those options, we want to go and open up our settings with the little cogs at the bottom right of the screen. And that will show us the 4 different areas that we can change settings in. The first one we want to do is we want to go up to game. And this is where you can change your nickname if you really need to. I would suggest trying to stick with it as much as possible. Because right now, even though you can change your name multiple times, it does say up here you can only change your nickname once. So it may be in the future that they will prevent you from doing that. I would just pick something and stick with it. The the voice lines for the USEC, there are 2 of them. So when you first come in here, this will be set to USEC 1. He's a polite fella. He's got some good lines, but personally I like USEC 2, so I'll switch that here. You can actually switch this as often as you like, so that's fine. This guy's a little coarser, and I just kind of prefer that. So it's entirely up to you. As I said, you can change it multiple times. It's not a big deal. Play around with it and see which one you prefer. The main thing in here for me is this always show interface elements, and what that means is when you're in game, you'll have a little man, your character, down in the bottom right, and there is a stamina bar, and that will persistently display if you have this box checked. If you do not check it, it will only show up when your bar is depleted, or as you deplete your bar, your stamina. So it may be that you like to see that on the screen or not, but a lot of people don't realize that this exists, and I'm just letting you know it's there. And video highlights, totally your preference. I mean, if you want it to show at the end of every match, whether or not you want to watch each of your kills back or your death, which is probably the most common thing you'll watch, then just select this. I don't think you need to do anything outside of the game once this is selected, but there may be some configuration in NVIDIA itself. That's another video entirely. The field of view, I have mine set to 72 for no particular reason whatsoever. That again is personal preference. And the head bobbing, I would recommend you have that as low as possible, which right now is 0.2, just to reduce any bounce in your walk and to make the game a lot more playable, in my opinion. Click save down in the bottom right, and those settings will be saved. Clicking save will bring you back to the main menu. You can change each of these independently and then click save, but just as someone that's played this game a long time, I prefer to do little things and then save rather than do a lot of stuff and then save, just in case you get any kind of errors. Remember, this is a beta, so you will frequently find errors in weird places, and that's totally normal. So we come back into the settings area. Graphic settings, obviously this is completely depends on your system. I'm just showing you how I have mine set up. I run a GTX 1080, 32 gig of RAM, and a 6850K overclocked, but I also stream from my PC at the same time as I'm playing, so you know, you can change this and mess around with it, but these are my settings, just in case you need to see them. You may want to save at this point. I'm just going to move across to sound. Right now I have music volume turned off for the benefit of the video. The one thing I wanted to show you in here is interface volume. This doesn't just affect the volume of the menus. What it does, if you reduce this, it will reduce the volume of animations and consumables in the game. So if you're reloading a magazine or using meds, the volume of those for you will be reduced, which means that if you're in a tense situation in a firefight, you are going to more clearly be able to hear someone moving towards you while you're in your menu or while you're performing an action. So play around with that. I keep mine at 50 because I do like to still be able to hear what's happening, make sure that I've actually activated the medical animation correctly, but there's a nice little balance there. So play with that, but a lot of people again aren't aware that that is something that will help, and again, it may change in the future, but right now I recommend putting that on about 50. The last thing really to talk about is the controls options. These have recently been changed, so they're very, very flexible now. There are a few things that I have set that you might want to consider. Everyone has their own preference as to how they have their control set up. Personally, I have my number 4, which is in the quick bar, is set to my mouse 4, which is actually the front thumb button on my mouse. And what that does is it allows me, once I've hotbarred my meds, it allows me to activate my meds from my mouse rather than having to move my fingers from my movement keys. And the other one I have is prone, which I have set to the back mouse thumb button, and that allows me to just drop onto the ground very quickly without having again to move my fingers off the movement keys. Sensitivity is something that you'll want to play with. You can see mine here. I think I run 800 DPI on my mouse, so I mean that's something that will that's something that you'll want to play with as you play the game. Everyone has their own comfort zone for sensitivity, so I'll leave that with you guys. And then anything else you could change in here. If you want to change your ADS from toggle to continuous, you can do that with these additional options down on the right hand side. But for now, we'll just go ahead and save out of this and move on to our stash. So to look at our stash, we want to go into our character, and our stash over here on the right hand side. This is what you start with a standard account. I bought a standard account for the purpose of this video, but obviously there's multiple different versions with varying starting equipment. From a perspective of a standard account, there's not really a great deal that you need to do, but this is your starting items. Personally, I would sell some of or all of the splints and probably the water, because you just don't need them at this point, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. So we want to sell these items. What we need to do is click the back button and go into the traders, and there you'll be able to pick from any one of these 7. As you go through the game, you'll start to recognize which traders sell what, and where you should sell items to which trader. For the consumable items, we want to go to therapist. She will sell a lot of the medications, the water. She sells maps, and later on she'll sell you cases. In order to sell anything, we want to click on the sell tab at the top, and that will give us a screen in the middle, which allows us to either drag and drop or control left click items into the sell screen, which we'll do. And then once we're happy with the items we want to sell, just hit deal and we get money, which will go up here. And that's the basic premise of selling anything to a trader. We click back and go back into our stash screen, and we'll take it from here. So there's some items I do want to keep, primarily this Tashonka. You'll be like, why are you keeping that? Well, you'll learn that in a quest that you need to do, or a task later on, you need 30 of these. So keeping any little one that you get is great. Guys with the Edge of Darkness edition of the game actually start with 10 of these, which is a nice little head start. But these are fairly easily found on the map Interchange, but that's another video. Right now I'm just letting you know I'm keeping these. If you want to maximize your stash space, you can always make use of your bags. You can store these things like this for now in a bag and just keep that, you know, somewhere at the bottom out of the way. So now you've got past all that, you have your stash, and you want to go into your first raid. There's a few things that you should do. The first is that you want to go and accept tasks. Tasks are your primary way to earn XP in the game. They're not the only way, but they really are the best way, and they do also help you level up your traders. And leveling up your traders is how you unlock better gear as you go through the game. To get started, what we want to do is click on back and go into our traders. At the top you'll see they have a tasks tab. So the first thing you want to do is go through and click on this accept button against all the tasks that you currently have available to you. There are no longer any timed tasks in this, so it's safe to accept all of them without an issue. And then we can go and just double check and make sure, you know, that we've accepted all of them. There's one for therapist, nothing for skier, nothing for peacekeeper, mechanic, and ragman. They will all unlock tasks later on in the game. Just keep coming back to them and checking every now and then. Normally they're linked to level, so as you level up it's worth coming back to check. You'll notice I avoided Fence, and that's primarily because he doesn't ever have tasks, and you also cannot level him up. He is purely a trader that allows you to sell things for reduced prices and buy things for inflated prices, and has no real value to you, especially at this point in the game. So talked about tasks being something you want to do initially. The other thing really it's worth doing is examining all of the items you have that are unexamined. This gains you a very small amount of XP, but personally I always do it because it kind of irks me to see unexamined items in inventory. I think a lot of people are that way, but I also know people that leave those items unexamined, and those people are weird. But you know, again, it's personal preference, and if that's how you want to do it, that's fine. I will take any little bit of XP that I can, so that's what I do. The other way of getting XP that you should be aware of is searching bodies. So even if you didn't kill a scav or a player that you come across and it doesn't look like they have anything on them, it's always worth just clicking F on their body to search, and you will normally get XP for doing that. Depending on what they have on them will depend on how much XP that you get, so you never know. It's worth doing it just to get that extra XP. The other thing about searching scavs is that you will often find task items, keys and or money on them. Task items are something that you're going to need, and some of them are very hard to come by, so it is definitely worth searching all of the scavs that you find dead, as long as it's safe to do so, or you deem it safe to do so. Do that at your own peril, but generally it's a good idea to do it, and you never know what you might find. I've linked an image below that someone else did that contains a list of all the items for tasks that you'll need between the lowest and the highest levels of the game. Hopefully you'll find that invaluable. As I just talked about, trader leveling is super important, and something that you want to make sure that you focus on. Your level will always be displayed in the top right here, and your current trader level is the item in this little square. The current trader level with Prapor is level 1. This is our level 1. This number here is your reputation with the trader, and this number here is the amount of money you've either bought or sold from that trader. Now, in order to reach level 2, it gives you the information of what you need here. In order to hit level 2, we need to be level 15. We need 0.20 reputation with this trader, and we need to have spent or sold to him goods which value up to 1 million rubles, and that's something that you'll do as you play through the game. You need to be cautious of who you're buying and selling to. Generally, consumables to therapist, weapon mods to skier, and weapons to prapor or mechanic. But you can easily overlook peacekeeper, and peacekeeper is the first trader that you will level to 2 at level 10. So it's definitely worth keeping an eye on that, and my recommendation is that you level up peacekeeper and prapor first, because they have the best level 2 gear. Just to show you really quick how you increase your trader reputation, as I mentioned, it's through tasks. I just wanted to quickly show you here. We have this task highlighted that we already accepted. At the bottom here, it shows you how much reputation you'll gain for completing this task. So you can see this is 0.05, and in order to hit level 2 we need 0.20. So we know that for Prapor we're going to need to complete more than just this one task, and that's why tasks are so important to complete as you play through the game. One other thing that I wanted to talk about is another thing that I personally do early game, and that is collecting keys. If we look at this map of Shoreline, you can see there are many keys that you can find in the world. The locations marked are the keys location where you can loot them, and once you have those keys you can then use those to enter rooms in the east and west wing of the resort. I highly recommend you learn your way around the resort. There's amazing loot in there, and as well as task items. I will put a link to this map, the Shoreline map. There's also a customs map that shows locations of keys, and then I also have a link to a website that lists all the keys for every map, what they're for, which door they open, and what loot you can expect to find inside. So I want to move on next to early game loadouts, but before I do that I just want to mention that if you're new to the game, and if you got this far in the video, chances are that you're new, what I highly recommend you do is play the game in offline mode first, and get familiar with spawns and extracts on each of the maps. Map knowledge is 80% of survival. You can be the best first-person shooter player in the world, kill everyone on the map and get all the great loot. Unless you know where the extracts are, then you're basically screwed. So do that. In order to play offline, you go through the normal process of starting a match. Pick your map, pick a time, and then when you get to this screen, you get the option to enable offline mode. You can choose whether to have scavs present or not. Personally, I would choose to do that. Get familiar with where scavs spawn. And everything else is your personal preference. So now let's get back to early game loadouts. I want to go over some of the things that I would choose to run at the start of the game and what you have available to you at level 1. Obviously you start with at least one AKS, depending on which edition of the game you bought, and you have plenty of pistols. I definitely recommend using them. Each pistol has 2 magazines and enough spare ammo that you could just, you know, grab these and run them as they are. We can just do this and drag those over. You need to make sure you leave a space spare when you reload, otherwise you'll drop a magazine. But that's, you know, that's the stuff you start with. That's easy. What happens when you don't have that? When you've run out, what do you do? Now, for me, I'm a big fan of the SKS. You get that level 1 skier. We can just examine that. It's right here. It's not expensive, and it is a very good 7.62 rifle. So we can just buy one of those. Skier also sells spare magazines for that gun, so we can just grab a couple of these. And then you're going to want to buy some ammo, which Prapor sells, and he has up here 7.62 by 39 PS. We'll just buy 120 rounds, and that's a fairly cheap loadout, and something that you'll be, you know, able to use. We'll just remove some of this stuff from here. And then what we want to do is equip the gun, which you can do with Alt left click. That will put it into your onto your person. If you want to just put it into your rig or bag, you just control left click. So that's the difference there. We want to put the magazines, control left click those into our rig. Same with the ammo, and then we'll load these magazines, unload the one that's in the gun already, and put some ammo in that, and then reload it. This is all we need from a firearm perspective to go into the raid. There are no optics that you can put on the gun at this point, so you're going to be using the iron sights, and that's fine. This is a really good weapon to use. It's very powerful against scavs, and early game when people aren't running around with armor, the PS ammo is very good. Now we've got a gun set up. We want to take meds, the cheese as we call it, the AI2s will repair HP loss, but often when you get shot you'll also have a bleed, and that is why you need a bandage. You cannot have enough meds, so I would always recommend taking at least one set of extra meds in your secure container. Anything that's in here when you die you will keep, and that's also worth remembering. If you come across a valuable task item and you might not make it out of the raid, make sure you put it in your secure container, and just prioritize high value items to go in there, and then you will at least come out of the raid with something, even if you don't actually extract. At this point you're ready to go into a raid, and you can do that. You can choose which maps you want to do, you can prioritize tasks, you can use the reference document for the keys if you want to go and search for keys, but the best and most important advice I can give you is just go and have some fun. Don't worry too much about losing gear. It's perfectly normal to have gear fear. That's something that will probably live with you through the first at least couple of months of the game. Honestly, it can take a while. Maybe that's not you, maybe you're not worried about it at all, but it's fairly normal. Don't let that put you off taking gear into a raid. Running into a raid naked, or just a knife or a hatchet, might seem like more fun because you're not really risking anything, but you're going to lose a lot of learning time by doing that. I highly recommend you always take a firearm with you. Your survival will increase exponentially by taking in a firearm rather than a hatchet, and you will learn a lot more about the game too. So definitely take in at least a pistol, if nothing else. You don't need to take in a rig or a bag if you're doing that, so it's very low cost and you increase your chances of surviving a lot. So that's it for my first video. Hopefully you guys were able to learn a lot if you're new to the game, and it's been helpful for you. If you find something that works better for you than something I've suggested, that's excellent. Feel free to share it in the comments. I'm always happy to learn stuff myself, and hopefully you guys will be able to share that with the community too. If you did enjoy the video, I'd really appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, leave a like or a comment. That would be excellent. Also, I stream on Twitch most days in the evening in North American Central Time, so feel free to drop by the Twitch channel. I'll leave a link for that below, and hopefully I'll catch you guys soon. Peace.